Hey there everyone, Dr. Brad here from drellisor.com. In today's video I wanted to talk about sleep, and we're going to talk about the how and the why. So I'm going to actually start with the why. And sleep is one of these topics that has been up a lot these days in the natural health world. And that's because the more we research the functions of the brain and what happens when we sleep, the more we learn how vital it is to sleep. And there's been a long time idea that we could probably skimp on sleep and get away with having less sleep if we did other things potentially for our health, eat well, exercise. And these things are true. Those help mitigate the effects of the stress of not sleeping. But really sleeping enough, and that's really 7 to 8 hours for most adults, is ideal for brain function, immune system function, digestive function. Really all the functions of our body require that regular rest on an everyday basis. So a lot of people might be thinking right now, and you might be thinking, 7 or 8 hours, how in the world could I ever get that? I have a hard time falling asleep. I wake up early, I wake up in the middle of the night, I have a hard time staying asleep. And so that's really why I wanted to get into the how of sleep more than the why. I think the why has been covered a lot in the general health press, and just take my word for it, if nothing else, that it really is important for the function of your overall body and your brain. So what I wanted to do is cover a couple tips for improving the quality of your sleep, and we call this sleep hygiene. Now, sleep hygiene is an important thing because of our modern lifestyle. And we're going to start with the number one thing for sleep hygiene for most people is you need to stop or limit your exposure to blue light. Now, this is really a minimum an hour before you go to sleep. Ideally 2 hours before you go to sleep, you want to be limiting or stopping your exposure to blue light. Now you might be thinking, well, blue light, I don't even have a blue light bulb. But here's the thing, all of the modern electronic screens have blue light. So televisions, computers, cell phones, tablets, all of these things emit a blue light. Now here's why that matters, because blue light stimulates the hormones in our brain that wake us up. The converse is reddish, orange, yellow light. That stimulates the sleep hormones in our brain. If you think about our ancestors and how for most of human history, the vast majority, we didn't live inside buildings. We didn't have artificial light. So in the morning, and primarily at dusk, you notice that when we go to sunset, the light in the sky becomes more orange and red. And that signals our brain that it's time to start winding down for sleep. At the height of the day, the sky is blue, and we're getting a lot of blue light emitted from the sunlight. And that signals our brain to be wide awake. A big part of the reason people have such difficulty sleeping in this day and age is because of our constant and regular exposure to that blue light. So it's vital, it's very key. And so there's a couple choices. One, you just stop using screens and electronics an hour or two before bed and do other things. And another option is, if that seems unlikely or unappealing to you, is which I do and my wife and I do, is we have orange tinted or yellowish orange tinted glasses that are blue blocking sunglasses essentially. And you put those on and you can look at screens and it blocks all that blue light, much better for your brain. There's also apps for phones and tablets. I have one on my cell phone that has a timer basically. So it automatically at 9 o'clock at night turns my phone screen orange. So when I'm looking at it, it blocks out all the blue light and everything is orangish. It looks a little weird at first when it makes the transition, but after a few moments of looking at it, my eyes just get used to it. And I know that I'm blocking out that blue light. So that's an important one. That is a huge one that I think if people just did that, it would impact their quality of sleep significantly. And it really wouldn't take that long of consistently changing your light exposure. Another thing along the same lines as the exposure to light is to sleep in total darkness. We also, again, live in a world where there are a lot of electronics in our bedrooms, in the rooms we sleep in, and they emit light. It can be a clock radio, or an alarm clock. It can even be computers where they have the green light on, or the red light for the monitor, and another light on the laptop, and your phone is over in the corner blinking its light, telling you got messages waiting. You need to get rid of all of that stuff out of your bedroom. You want to have a completely dark environment. So light blocking curtains and shades are a great thing. They're vital. Also, another thing that I do is I wear a mask, an eye mask at night. That way, you know, if there's a full moon or I have neighbors that have lights on the outside of their house and that kind of thing, I'm making sure to block all that light. I also take that when I travel because, you know, hotels and so forth, you can't always block out all the light with their shades. So if you just have personal light blocking, that helps a lot. Again, same idea with the red, the orange, and the blue light. It has to do with the chemistry and the hormone release in your brain. When you're in total darkness, you stimulate the release of that melatonin and the sleep chemicals and neurochemicals, and it allows you to have a much more restful and deeper sleep. So that's another piece of that 7 to 8 hours. You need 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep where you're in that deep restful state. So having it be completely dark is a very important thing for that. So those are probably the two most important things in terms of sleep hygiene. Making sure you're not exposed to the blue light in the hours leading up to sleep, and then having a completely dark room for sleep. And this is thinking of, you know, I have 3 young children, and having them wear eye masks is a hit or miss type of thing. So we take a lot of effort in our house to cover their windows and try to block out all the light we can. We end up having to use light blocking curtains and even extra blankets sometimes pinned up. But these things are vital for our children too. And kids really often need much more sleep. You know, I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And my 9 and 6-year-old, they still get close to 11 hours of sleep each night. And, you know, we try to have it in complete darkness. And the same thing, you want to limit their screen time prior to bed and then have that really, really pitch dark room. You know, we want to not have night lights and these types of things if you can help it. We've done that with our children all along. My 1.5-year-old sleeps part of the night in her sister's room, so totally dark, and then part of the night in our room, totally dark. So she's completely used to not having things like night lights. But if you already do night lights with your kids, you want to look to start to transition that. So maybe put something over the night light to keep it dimmer and keep dimming it down and get them used to being in a darker and darker environment. They're going to be much more rested, much happier in the morning, and it's going to be a lot better for their growing and changing brains and bodies. And then the last thing, as far as sleep hygiene goes, is one that maybe people know a little bit more, or is a lot more commonly known, and that's eating. And you want to make sure you don't eat really 3 hours before you go to bed is ideal, and if that's not possible or likely, then you want to go at 2 hours at a minimum, so that your digestive process is complete or mostly complete before you get into bed. That way your autonomic nervous system and your body's internal processes can focus on deep rest and recovery, rejuvenation, and repair, and not be wasting those valuable resources that should be on those things for digestion of food. That's a different process. And so that's going to be great for all kinds of stuff, weight loss, nutritional purposes and everything, but also sleep quality and depth of sleep. So to review, blue light exposure 2 hours before bed, sleep in a completely dark room, wear an eye mask even, and number 3, you want to stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. So those things are key. Hopefully that's helpful. Give them a try, see how it goes. I think you will notice a vast difference in the quality of your sleep. Hopefully for those of you that feel like you have to take even natural things or medications to sleep, we'll be able to start to get off of that stuff and just use your body's natural rhythms and biochemistry and brain chemistry to cause you to have restful, recuperative sleep. You will thank me if you do. Alright, this is Dr. Brad from drlsor.com, signing off. You take care, and we'll see you next time.